Welcome to the 35th Annual Lorette LaPrevo Writers Symposium. So, I'm sure most of y'all know this, but my name is Katie Hoover, and I'm the coordinator of oral and written communication here at CCC&TI, and we are just so tickled to have everyone here, especially in this foggy weather. So we want to say our thank yous. So definitely thank you to the culinary program, the art department, our social sciences department, our campus bookstore, our learning resource centers, our student activities, and our maintenance staff. This event is put on by our college foundation at CCC&TI. A few housekeeping notes. So the snacks in the back are meant for you to enjoy, and the ones with the little signs are ones that come directly from Virginia WIllis's cookbook. We tried to do our best to follow those recipes, and so hopefully you will enjoy them.
Hopefully those recipes are well written enough for you to enjoy them.
That's it. You get to be the judge of that. We are road testing these. So we do have some cookbooks for sale from the bookstore, and I think it's a cash only in the evening. So please feel free to pick up your copy today. And you may already know this, but restrooms are located through those double doors, and they're by the front entrance, and then there's another one around the corner as well that's a single. So this year, the theme for our Writers Symposium is Food for Thought. So we've been focusing on ways that food binds us together as a community and provides insight into our history and our culture. So today we're so pleased to have Chef Virginia WIllis. She is a James Beard Award-winning cookbook author, chef, video personality, content creator, social media influencer, and motivational speaker. Her work has appeared in the New York Times, the Washington Post, People, Eater, Food 52, Eating Well, Garden and Gun, and Bon Appetit. Her life and work has been inspired by her weight loss story, losing 65 pounds and keeping it off for 2.5 years, over 2.5 years, with good and good-for-you recipes. She's a sustainable seafood activist, LGBTQ icon, and No Kid Hungry ambassador. So today she's going to be sharing some of her experiences in and out of the kitchen. So welcome.
Yay! Is my mic on there, Nancy? Are you getting feedback? Are you getting what we need?
You're listed?
Okay, good, awesome. Thank you so much for coming tonight. We were talking earlier that the weather not cooperating, but I am thrilled to be here, and I have to tell you, when I hear my biography read like Katie does, like she said, what do you want me to say about them? I'm like, oh, you know, because I think that one of the things that happens, like I love my job and I love what I do and I love my experiences, and sometimes when I hear that, it's like, oh gosh, I did that, yeah, I did that, I did that. Oh my God, I did that too. So I feel so blessed and fortunate. And the story that I really want to start with, and it's about the Food Writers Conference at the Greenbrier, not too terribly far away from here. So the Food Writers Conference at the Greenbrier was hosted by Antonio Allegra, and it was just this amazing symposium that took place for like 20 years. And when Katie and Nancy outreached to me to participate in this conference and food writing and how important it would be, and made me instantly think of the Food Writers Conference at the Greenbrier. And one of my favorite stories about this involves Julia Child, right? So we all know Julia Child. So I used to work for a woman, her name was Anne Willen. She had a chateau and a cooking school in France, and she would spend some of the time in France and some of the time in the United States. And you'll meet her a little bit later on in my presentation. But I was recipe testing for her in Washington, D.C., and she, Ann Willen, and Julia Child, they would have this sort of shtick that they would do cooking classes, and it was the dynamic duo, and they would kick off the Food Writers Conference at Greenbrier with this like tag team thing, and it was really awesome and really fun. So I had been recipe testing in DC. It was around this time of year. It was cold, it was wet, it was rainy, and I finished work in DC. It was probably like a Wednesday or something, midweek, because the conference was a long weekend. And I drove over from DC, and it was raining, and it was snowy, and it was wet. And I got there, and it was like 9 o'clock at night. And I get to the cottage, and Ann and Mark are at dinner. I just go to bed, right? I don't have to see my boss. I don't have to have a meeting. I can just go to bed, and we'll start fresh tomorrow, and this has been a long day. Well, Ann and Mark come home from dinner, and I hear, and Ann is English. So Ann is English, and if you can imagine Queen Elizabeth II, before she passed, being a cooking school instructor, you have Ann Willen, okay? She's literally the only person I've ever met in my life that literally sometimes stands like this, like in real life, like in real IRL, in real life. So Ann, Virginia, I'd like to have a meeting. So I'm in bed. I am in bed in my pajamas, and I get out of my pajamas and I put my clothes on, and I'm in my late 20s. This is 1,012 years ago. So I get out of my pajamas, put my clothes on, and I'm not too happy about this, but I am there at the Greenbrier, the grace of Ann Willen, and I am doing my job, and I'm a good woman, and I said, yes, ma'am. So I walked outside, and we're having a meeting, and we're going over the recipe testing, and mind you, this is 10 o'clock at night, and they've come home from dinner, and they've had wine, and they've had all the things, and I have not. Right? I have not. And I can tell that Ann is sort of hemming and hawing, right? And she is neither a hemmer nor a hawer, right? That's not her speed. And she says to me, she goes, I have a favor to ask of you. Like, yes, ma'am? And she said, Stephanie's had to go back to Boston. Now, I knew that Stephanie was Julia's assistant. She said, so Stephanie's had to go back to Boston, and I was wondering if you might mind staying with Julia. What? So yes, I said yes. What did I say, y'all? I said yes, ma'am. I said yes, ma'am. So the next morning, the bellman came, and he took my bags, and he took me to the largest, grandest suite on the whole entire property, where I proceeded to be Julia Child's roommate for a week. And I just pretended like, I sort of treated her like I treated my grandmother, right? She was a lot older, right? You know, I was in my late 20s. And I just made sure she got to class on time, and I made sure she didn't leave her cane, and I carried her book bag, and we had a great time. And it was just, it was an amazing. And one of my favorite parts about it is I was trying to be cool. You know, I was trying to be cool. And I couldn't call my mama, and I really wanted to call my mama, so I found this little nook. Mama, I'm staying with Julia Child. I can't hear you. I'm staying with Julia Child. So finally they heard me. But that was the beginning of how food and writing and food writing can transform your life. So let's go a little bit further forward. Now, I was fortunate enough to run into Julia numerous times in my career in New York and before she passed. And we're in New York one day at the Waldorf Astoria, and it was a big dinner, one of those big foodie dinners. And so when Julia would go to these big foodie dinners, it was like if the Pope walked out in the middle of St. Peter's Square. Like everybody wanted to touch her, everybody wanted to talk to her, everybody wanted a piece, right? So my friend was like, go say hey, go say hey. I'm like, no, I don't want to bother her. I don't want to do this. this. I don't want to interrupt her. And so I didn't. And then towards the end of the meal, I saw that there was a little bit of a lull in the throngs of fans like surrounding her. And I went up to Julia and I said, hey Julia, it's Virginia. It's Anne's Virginia. We were together at the Greenbrier. Like I tried to give her all the clues, right? Because she used to meet so many people and all the people. And she sort of looked at me sort of quizzically and sat up straight in her chair and she goes, well, I know who you are. I was wondering why you hadn't come over to say hello. And so I am 10,000% certain that when I'm about to cross into whatever's next, that is going to be one of the memories that floats through my head, right? So food writing and writing about food has been my whole entire life. I am a chef and a cookbook author, but I became a cookbook author long after going to culinary school. And but my very first job cooking was on a TV cooking show. So from the beginning, I was more into the media side of things. But I want to share with y'all a couple of things about this. So I was a chef that worked on a TV show, and it was a woman, her name is Natalie Dupree, and so it was all about recipe testing, and she had PBS TV shows, and so from the beginning, the written word was a part of my education and my learning. And as I was preparing for this and to think about what to talk about and how to sort of sum up my life and something that might be helpful or entertaining or educational or something, I was telling Katie before I started tonight, like it really, like writing has been that complete thread. And Katie also mentioned in the beginning my weight transformation, my life transformation, because I've lost 65 pounds and I've now kept it off almost over 3.5 years. So I have to correct my bio, but over 3.5 years. And what I have come to believe very fully in is that writing, believe it or not, has been a part of that change and a part of that journey. And it was not until I really started putting the pieces together for this talk tonight that I realized that writing was there too. And so one of the things that I love about writing, obviously is the thought, but there's some practical things. And I know that English teachers, I know some of the teachers who will say this, so we know for a fact that when we write things down that we're more likely to remember it. It's statistically proven. Writing can bring clarity. It can bring accountability. It can bring focus. If you write down a goal, you are 42%, they've studied this, if you write down a goal, you are more likely to achieve that goal if you have written it down. Writing can also, it helps us focus our thoughts, it brings us clarity. And so when I think about this transformation and what I call good and good for you living, like, what is this? What is this? What is this more than just like losing weight? Because that's not what life is about. No one's going to find their happiness in a number between your toes, whether it's too high or too low or whatever. Happiness is not found there. So I started thinking about what food writing, what writing means to me, how writing has transformed my life. And what I realized is that what I consider good and good for you to be is it's a strategy. It's a strategy for positive behavior. It's a strategy for like an optimal life performance. I mean, it sounds sort of clinical, but I want to be the best person I can. If you want to call it optimal performance or being the best you can be, either one. But either one will work. But good and good for you is a strategy that encourages positive behavior that is grounded in journaling. And I had a lot of things happen to me, like right before the pandemic, and we're going to go through some of it there. But what someone said to me, I think you should start journaling. And I said, oh my God, are you serious? I write for a living. Why would I want to write more without being paid? I mean, we're not exactly lighting up the banking institutions as it is, right? So it's like, why I don't want to write more. That writing more is not going to help me. And yes, it does. So before I go a little bit deeper into that, what I want to do is to take y'all on a little story. Well, how can writing transform your life? Well, my life is fine. My life doesn't need transforming. Well, it may or may not be true. And you don't have to look at your neighbor, but the reality is there are a lot of people that are in a hot mess, right? You know, 1 in 5 American women are on antidepressants. That's crazy. 1 in 5 women are on antidepressants. So I like to think of mind, body, spirit, and what I like to call thrivability. That's where I have come, and that's what I like to put into practice every day. What is good for my mind? What is good for my body? What is good for my spirit? And how can I thrive? And all of that is achieved through writing. So you see the statistics. 73% of Americans are obese or overweight. 1 in 3 are pre-diabetic. Now that doesn't have anything to do with weight, right? That doesn't have anything to do with weight. That has to do with heart condition. That has to do with an increased chance of stroke. I found it so sad to read that 21% of Americans, there's no religious affiliation. Like, it's just become so polarized in a lot of things. So that's the spirit. So the mind, 1 in 5 are depressed. The body, there's all sorts of health concerns. The spirit, there's no religion. And then the thrivability part, I found that this was completely shocking, that nearly 50% of Americans that are my age, 55, 60-ish, don't have any retirement. Like, if these statistics are right, then unfortunately our culture needs some correcting, right? So how does journaling affect us here? And how does writing affect us here? So when I say journaling, people's eyes, maybe not this direct crowd, because I've got a very specific crowd here tonight, but you know, when I say journaling to normal people, their eyes glaze over so fast, it's just astonishing. And when I say writing, it's too terrifying. They don't think that they're a writer. So I've tried like data collection. Would data collection work? You know, I mean, it sounds, but the whole thing is that it's like sort of, it is built around, it is built around acknowledging, examining, and assessing. And if you do these things and you write it down, it will bring clarity, and that is how writing can transform your life. So I was fortunate enough today to get to go make biscuits with the culinary students. And I've been making biscuits since I looked like that. And the biscuits that we made today in class were the same exact recipe that's on that counter right now. So when I have some kind, meaning person text me and tell me that there's something wrong with my biscuit recipe, I put my sass in my back pocket and I say, how can I help you with this? And what are the ingredients that you use? Because I am 10,000%, I am not certain about many things, but I can tell you 2 things that I'm certain of. And one of them is that biscuit recipe works, right? Because I've been making it for a long time. I was born in the kitchen. Just going to send y'all through a little slideshow of my life. Born in the kitchen. There's my grandmother. That's who taught me to make biscuits. And that's my sweet mama, who's also here. And I'm glad she's here with me. But I was born in the kitchen, and I've always loved the kitchen, and I've always loved cooking, and I've always loved being in the kitchen. And when I started out to be a cook, I had no idea that I would actually become a food writer, right? I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to be a restaurateur. This is, so speaking of Julia. So there's Julia, and that's my mentor, Natalie Dupree. And a different hair color on a very young Virginia. I think I was 25 there. And someone asked me, Nancy asked me earlier, what was one of the nicest people that I've worked with in my career, which is really kind and awesome, because normally people ask the exact opposite. They want to know the nasty. And I don't like to talk about the nasty, right? There's no need to continually perpetuate that. So I was so grateful when Nancy asked me that. So well, wait a minute, how did you become a cook? I have a degree in history from the University of Georgia. I graduated in 1989. It made me completely unhireable, right? Like liberal arts in 1989, it was like, woohoo, what you gonna do? I wound up in retail management. I was terrible. It was awful. It was exactly that. I was terrible at it. I was miserable. And I remember thinking, I was 25 years old, and I remember thinking, I am so unhappy. You're supposed to be unhappy when you're like 40, not 25. Now, asterisk, you're actually not supposed to be unhappy at 25 or 40 or 55 or 65 or whatever it is, right? That's the deal. So what had I always loved to do? What had been my happy place since I was this tall? The kitchen. So and everyone had been telling me for years, you need to go to culinary school. You need to go to culinary school. You need to go to culinary school. So I finally listened, and I finally went to culinary school. And I went to a school, called L'Académie de Cuisine, which was at the time located in Bethesda, Maryland. Went to school there for a year. And then I moved to France, and I worked with Anne Willen. And so Anne was part of the dynamic duo with Julia, right? And so she's prolific, absolutely prolific. And I was meant to be in France for 3 months, and I was in France for 3 years. And that had a whole lot to do with it, right? So that is where I lived and worked, and that was a 17th century French chateau in the Burgundian countryside. And I remember one of my, it was astonishing. It was really like working in a small inn. We had avocational culinary students come, and so it was really more like culinary tourism. People would come to take cooking classes, and there was some editorial education. I very specifically went to be an editorial stagiaire. So stagiaire is a French term for apprentice, and it's unpaid labor. And there's a lot about the culinary, the institution of culinary. It's still very medieval. It's still very much based. It is a hands-on, experience-driven trade. This is, you can write on a resume anything you want. You could have worked at 10,000 restaurants, but hey, the rubber hits the road when you put it on the plate. And if you can't cook, you can't cook. You can't fake that. You can fake a lot of things, but you can't fake whether food tastes good or not. So I went to become an editorial stagiaire. Y'all, now Anne would edit my recipes. So she would give me a recipe to edit and test. So I would test the recipe, and I would input my corrections, and I would try to edit it, and then I would give it back to her because we were working on a book project. And she would return the paper to me, and it would be so soaked in red ink that it would be limp. I'm not making this up. I mean, I'm really not, truly not making this up. So I like to think about it that Natalie, so my first job cooking was with Natalie. Natalie took me out of my mother and grandmother's kitchen. She exposed me to things I had never seen or heard of before. She explained to me certain things that I did know what they were, but I didn't know how to make them. So when I grew up, my mom had made patty shells with green beans and a white sauce. Well, I learned later that that was pâte feuilletée. And I learned later that that was a sauce mornay. I didn't know it when I was 8 years old, right? But I did learn that later. So I like to say that Natalie took me out of my mother and my grandmother's kitchen and taught me how to write and test a recipe. And then after that, I was the kitchen director for Martha Stewart. So Martha taught me about the beauty of food, and those peaches, it's a crazy picture. Those pictures, we were cooking lunch for President Clinton. And so I've cooked lunch for the president. Regardless of your politics, I feel like, you know, the president, cooking lunch for the president, that was insanity. And this is before 9/11, of course. The security was unbelievable. I cannot imagine what it would be like now. There really is a taste tester for the president. He's in the Navy. It's an official position. And everything that we served that lunch, the taster would taste. We kind of sit there for a second. Nope, not going to kill you. Okay, next. Seriously. And there was one point, and so there's another sort of thing that I learned about being the president or being near the president. If you are allowed in the president's circle and his, thus far, immediate physical area, they give you a pin to wear. If you do not have that pin, you are immediately, without any questions asked, removed from the vicinity and exited. And at some point, there was a whole bunch of people, and the president took a different turn, and the Secret Service shoved 20 people in my kitchen in the middle of a luncheon for 100 people. Oh. And it's not just any luncheon. It's the luncheon for Martha Stewart and the President of the United States. And we're serving peach shortcakes, of course, that I had peaches flown up from Georgia. And I was like, okay, everybody against the wall, now. And everybody did just exactly what I said. So anyway, so that journey, starting with Natalie Dupree, going on with Anne, and then going with Martha. And Martha really taught me the importance of the beauty of food. And Martha really did want to learn something new every day, right? And the attention to detail and that quality matters, words matter. We were writing for the website, we were writing for the magazine, we were writing for TV Guide. It was nothing but writing. And boy howdy, the recipes had to be right. Because she was at the peak of I worked for her pre-incarceration. So, this was right when the company went public. Literally, the day the company went public, Martha picked up her phone and called Bill Gates because she was still trying to get MS for the stock market, for the NYC, for the stock exchange, and he wanted it for Microsoft, so she went with MSLO, Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia. But it really was this sort of heady time, and I reached another point. I think that we all have to examine our lives and what we're doing. We are here on this planet for not that long. And it all goes by in a blink of an eye. And if you are not happy at some point, what are you waiting on? What are you going to do about it? Because are you just going to stay unhappy? Stay not fixing it? Stay not trying to make anything better? So it was that point in time that I realized that I needed to leave Martha, and that was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, right? I was the kitchen director for Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia. I was responsible for all of the writing transformed my life. I was in charge of all of the writing on the website that had to do with the recipes. I was writing for these different publications. I was working on her cookbooks, all the things, but I wasn't happy. So I was approached and I went to Epicurious Television. So Epicurious Television was the online home of gourmet and Bon Appetit magazines. And Epicurious Television was a co-production between Condé Nast, obviously one of these huge, massive companies, media companies, and the Discovery Channel, which was also a huge, massive media company. And I really wasn't certain if I had made the right decision. And then 2 weeks after I took the job, I found myself on the island of Sicily harvesting capers with Michael LaMonaco, who was at the time the executive chef at the Windows on the World. And I felt like I had won the the jackpot, hit the home run, all the things, right? All the things. And it was there that I really left the kitchen. I mean, I always am going to keep a foot in the kitchen. But it was there that I really left the kitchen because my responsibilities had nothing to do with chopping, stirring, shopping. I was a full-time writer. I was writing the scripts. We were writing the content for the website. The first week was in Italy. We went to France, went to California, all these different places and things. But it was at this point in time that I also knew I had an idea to write a cookbook when I had first started attending the Greenbrier Food Writers Conference many years before. And I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to tell the story of the recipes of my mother and the recipes of my grandmother and my recipes. And so, Bon Appetit, y'all, was what I came up with, because that seemed to sort of make it the most sense. And so 2008, I wrote Bon Appetit, y'all. And they didn't want the title. The editors, it was sold to Simon & Schuster. No, it was 10 Speed Press. It was sold to 10 Speed Press, which was a division of Random House. And they wanted to name it Mimi, Mama, and Me. Which I don't know if that's technically correct as a grammarian or not, but it sounds wrong. You know the English it's right, like technically it's okay, but it sounds wrong. So Mimi, Mama, and Me sounded wrong. It sounded like it perpetuated some sort of ignorant Southerner, right? It just said all the wrong things. So I stuck to my guns and decided that I wanted to keep it to Bon Appetit, y'all. And that was when my life really started to change. So many more opportunities came to me as a result of writing that book. I was one of the I was very fortunate. I think they published 20,000 in the first run, and I was making royalties 3 months after it was published. It sold. It spoke. People loved it. It will always be an incredible special book to me. And I'm honored and thrilled to announce that UGA Press is publishing an update this fall. And on that note, as a side note to that, Bon Appetit, y'all, was the very first cookbook to be put into Bon Appetit, y'all, was the first cookbook to ever receive the recommendation to be put on the list of all books Georgians should read. What? So that just meant, that award means to me as much as my James Beard Award. I mean, maybe just a little bit less, let's just be real. But Bon Appetit, y'all, came out. My life completely changed. I continued to food write, but then other things started happening. So I was a guest on Chopped. It's me, the second person. And you will see that. So the first thing I pulled out of the basket on Chopped were lamb balls. And by lamb balls, I do not mean ground lamb in the shape of a ball. So I was the only girl, I was the only female on that show. The other contestants were male. All the judges were male. And I will just tell you this one thing, and gentlemen, I would imagine it would be the same. When you put that organ meat with grown men, they become 5 years old. Or 3. Something. But it's about like that. So Chopped happened. I was able to do that, and then lo and behold, a lot more books happened. Right? So writing, it didn't transform my life. Writing was my life. Writing became my life. So I wrote Bon Appetit, y'all. The library here has a copy of Basic to Brilliant, y'all. That was a combination of more French training. Lighten Up, y'all, came out. Lighten Up, y'all did win a James Beard Award. And I'm honored, was very honored about that. that James Beard Award, for those of you that do or do not know, it's the highest award in the culinary industry. So they have James Beard Awards for restaurants and chefs and hotels and hospitality. And you can also win a James Beard Award as someone in the media or as a writer. So I won the 2016 James Beard Award for Health. Secrets of the Southern Table, Oprah. Oprah is one of my favorites, but when I started talking about that book, every now and then they go, "Oh my gosh, did you get to meet her?" And I was like, no, the green vegetable, not the African American media mogul. I mean, no, Oprah, Grit. You want to talk about like obscure little writers? English teachers, you will appreciate this. Those books were hand printed and hand stitched by hipsters in Brooklyn. Not making that up. And then Little Fresh Start. And so it was at this time, it was astonishing. I was either featured or able to write for the New York Times, the Washington Post, the LA Times, People Magazine, Cosmopolitan, you name it. All of them. I mean, huge honor to either way, to write for it or either to be featured by either one of them. Like as a writer, the New York Times, oh my gosh, seriously? That was incredible opportunity. There's a very goofy Virginia. So what happened with that is that they went to take my picture and I was holding it up and giving that smile, right? The happy smile. And then the photographer goes, "No, how do you really feel?" And there she is. I finally did it, right? I finally did it. But here's what happened, y'all. So all these wonderful things are happening to me. I was able to cook at the James Beard house. That poofy hair picture, I was on Food Network. I was on CBS Saturday morning. I was doing presentations at Twitter. As an aside, you know the blue check that's so sought after? Well, I didn't have a blue check. I did a biscuit class and served biscuits at Twitter. And I woke up the next morning and I had a blue check. That's like, I mean, I'm no longer on Twitter, but that is possibly one of my favorite stories. My biscuits got me the blue check. But what is here that you don't see in all those smiling faces and all the great work that I was doing is that I wasn't happy. And I didn't feel like I was enough. Because it wasn't enough. Because, you know, you're looking at that and like, oh my God, she was on CBS Saturday morning. Well, you know what I thought? Well, if I were good enough, I would have been on CBS Sunday morning. And you see that Food Network picture? That was for foodnetwork.com. But if I were good enough, I would have been on right after Bobby Flay on TV. Right? Right? It's a hard place to be. I didn't really have any purpose. I mean, here I was having all these accolades and all these wonderful things happening to me and all these incredible opportunities. And I was writing and cooking for a living and doing all these wonderful things, but it was empty. It's hard to think about that, but it was empty. And this particular, yep, here it is. This is one of those pictures. If I'm going, you know, when I said if I'm going to heaven, I'm going to sit here and think about that Julius story. Well, if I go the other way, it's probably going to be this one. I remember that. That's the same thing. That's Elizabeth High School, who's the chef for the Today Show. That's at the Charleston Wine and Food Festival. I should have been ecstatic. Do you know what I remember about that day? I remember about the fact that I was on the Today Show stage. I was on with Elizabeth, who's a dear, wonderful person. But it wasn't on camera. It wasn't on the Today Show. I don't mean to sound like a selfish, spoiled brat. But I wasn't coming from a place of abundance. I was coming from a place of scarcity. And scarcity is fear. And that is where that feeling of not feeling enough, when you don't feel like you are enough and you don't feel like you have enough, then you can't also appreciate what you have. Because you're always just looking for something to fill that hole. And just like I said, we can't find happiness between our toes. I mean, that hole, you can't fill that hole with stuff. That hole has got to be filled with other. So, a lot of stuff happened. Fast forward, that's 2018, Secrets of the Southern Table came out, which was my last book. That was with Houghton Mifflin. I was approved by WGBH, the same station that produced Julia Child. They wanted me to have a TV show. We went out to seek funding. I needed $1 million. I came in short. Guess what that did? That certainly didn't help not feeling like enough, did it? It just put salt on that wound. And I knew that even without the show, that the book had to go out, the book had to go on, because I am a writer, I am a food writer, I just got to keep on going. And at that point in time, a lot of tumult happened in my personal life. And I was living in Massachusetts. I moved home from Massachusetts. This was late 2019. I think this was this photograph was taken in the like February, March of 2019. I had reached a point with this where when I wrote Lighten Up Y'all, that won the James Beard Award, I had lost some weight. I had lost some weight. Now, I had wanted to lose 50 pounds because I was still thinking that happiness could be found if I adjusted that number between my toes. And so when the James Beard, when we won the James Beard Award, when a cookbook process takes about 2 years. If you sign a contract for a cookbook, it takes about 2 years. You have 1 year to complete the manuscript, and then it takes approximately 1 year to publish it, to go through the editorial process, to actually hit the print button, for it to be shipped to China, and then sent back. So it's like a 2-year process. So when I wrote Lighten Up Y'all, that was published in 2015, by the time the Beard Awards rolled around in 2016, I'd already started gaining some of that weight back, right? And so it didn't stick. Because I hadn't actually made any substantial changes, I was looking for superficial changes. So, how did writing continue to transform my life? I moved home from Massachusetts. In the process of moving home from Massachusetts, I re-herniated a disc. There were points in time there was one time in particular that I remember that I needed a heating pad, and the heating pad was on the bottom shelf, and I couldn't get down to get it. So I ordered one from Amazon, and I met the guy at the door, and had him put it straight in my hand. Because there's a will, there's a way. I am persistent, and I don't take no easily. So the herniated disc happened. I couldn't walk upstairs some days. My bedroom is on the 2nd floor. My relationship has ended. I'm no longer in my home. My career has been put into a Cuisinart. Right? Everything is just a mess. And this is late 2019, and we all know what happened in early 2020. Right? The pandemic happened. I was scheduled, I just realized it last week, I was scheduled for an epidural. I had re-herniated that disc. They were going to give me an epidural to hopefully push off surgery again. The hospitals were shut down the day before I was supposed to have that surgery. Right? So I had also had another situation that Weight Watchers wanted to feature me in their magazine. Now I had gained some of this weight back, and I knew that it was no longer an appropriate feature. And I said, no, I'm okay, thanks so much. It's not appropriate, I've gained some weight back. No, we'd love to feature you. No, you don't understand. And they kept at it, and they said, no, we are not just about weight, it is about health, it is about more than just that. I'm like, okay, whatever, let's go. And so she said, we need your login information so that we can check it for legal. Crickets. For that, they sent my login information. I did not get an email back. I did not get an email back, thank you. I did not get an email back, no thank you. I did not get an email back, yep, you're right, you're fat, we can't feature you. I did not get anything. And it was one of the most shaming incidents and painful incidents of my whole entire life. I have been working for 25 years almost at this point to be able to be featured in a magazine. And I felt like that my unhappiness, which was being reflected in how I looked on the outside, was standing in the way of my life. You can't write your way out of that. You have to make actual change. So it was there that I decided that that number that the doctor was telling me,
Email, so
you've got mail. I've got mail. What did I say wrong? So, what did I do, God? I'm in that 20. I'm in the not in the 21%. I'm in the 89%, whatever that is. I'm not a math major, clearly. I decided that the number that they told me was too much for me to consider. That I just needed to head it in the direction of healthy and strong. Okay? I'm not looking at that number. That didn't make me happy before. It didn't stick. It didn't change my life. I need to be healthy and strong. And then this is the pandemic, right? So it's like, okay, I want to be healthy and strong, and now I am terrified. And I'm by myself. And I don't have anyone, and I got to figure this out. So, I start thinking about life a little differently. I'm still not to the journaling phase, writing phase, or data collection phase, however you want to look at it. But my thought was that I want to be healthy and strong. I want to be clear and focused. I want to be calm and graceful. And I want to be abundant and prosperous. And so that was the beginning. And so what I had decided, because we all know that you all read the statistics, the Google statistics about how Americans' health, how worldwide our health went down during COVID, how drinking increased, how eating increased, how heart conditions increased. I mean, just one on top of the other, right? So I knew that I needed guardrails to help make this difference. And so what I would like for you to think about, and how we can reflect this with writing and journalism, and how writing can change your life, is to start asking these questions. Who do I want to be? And this can translate to anything. This is not just about losing weight. This is if you want to become the leader of the department, a bank president, the best pickleballer, a great knitter, right? It doesn't matter what it is, but it gives you, if you start with the thought of who do I want to be? And that is going to give you clarity, which is what we know what writing does. And so this is also, it's thinking about mind, body, spirit, and thrivability. It's not just enough to say, who do I want to be? You can't just materialize things. This isn't just wishing. What do I need to do it? What do I need to do to get there? Willpower and motivation aren't enough. And I had learned that the first time I had tried to make these transformations, right? Willpower doesn't cut it. I had wanted to lose 50 pounds the first time I had lost weight, and I wasn't able to achieve it. I only ever lost 40 pounds. It wasn't enough, right? There's a theme here, right? It wasn't enough. There's something I find that's really hilarious about the fact that humans, and this woman in particular, that we feel like we're not enough because we're too much. The irony of that. Who do I want to be? What do I need to do? This is another level that's super important. What are the tools that I need to do it? Because you have to equip yourself. If you want to write, you need a pen. You have to equip yourself. And then this is the part that I think is so important. It is the writing it down. It is the assessing and the measuring. And writing it down, and this piece here is how writing can truly transform your life. So if we think about healthy and strong, clear and focused, calm and graceful, abundant and prosperous. In my mind, what that does is it identifies, we got all the bases covered. We got our body covered, our mind covered, our spirit covered, and then abundant and prosperous we typically think of as financial, which undoubtedly is a part of our life. And I know that for many women, we're also not taught to think about finance. We're not taught to talk about money, and we're not often taught to be smart about money. So if we go through the pieces, if we say that I want to be, who do I want to be? I want to be healthy and strong. What do I need to do that? I need to eat nutritious food and exercise. Well, duh, Virginia. Thanks. Thanks for coming and telling us that. This is where you have to go one level deeper, and this is what I think that writing can bring to it. Is it's also about finding those tools. There are 4,000,012 health apps that you can put on your phone that will help you count calories, count points, check your mood, whatever it needs to be, right? There are tools that are right there for us to just pick up and use. One of the ways that I encourage you to consider regular exercise is accountability. And that not only comes from writing it down, but one of my ways that I was able to start exercising every day happened during COVID because we couldn't be together in a room. So I started walking dates with my friends because we could walk outside, and it was social time. But more than that, y'all, it created accountability. And I still walk 5 days a week indoors, even though we're all indoors now. I still walk 5 days a week with a friend. And it's Debbie Wednesdays and Fridays at 9 o'clock, and it's Mary on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8:30. And I won't blow off Mary. I blow off me. We blow off ourselves, but we don't blow off someone else. So that is something, so it really is like thinking about who you want to do and how you want to do it. The second level of this, and all of these things are things that I track, assess, and measure by writing it down. So when you asked me to come and speak to that, that was this. So clear and focused. Focused works better, I think, than mindfulness. I find that mindfulness sounds like some sort of anonymous like spa candle, right? What in the hell is mindfulness? But focused makes sense. And how do you stay clear and focused? I find that time management is really focus, right? And there is a tool that I learned about that I love, and I find it very helpful for writing with work now, not just these personal changes I'm trying to make. But there's a tool called Tomato. Has anyone heard of this? Okay. Oh my gosh. It's called Pomodoro because it was invented in Italy. And the guy that invented it used to have a timer that was a tomato. We all know that timer. Set it for 25 minutes. And when you start, you say, I'm going to work on this assignment, journal. I'm going to write on this piece that is due tomorrow for the AJC. I'm going to work on this for 25 minutes. And I'm not going to do anything else for that 25 minutes. I'm not going to check that email. I'm not going to look at my phone. I'm not going to look at social media. I'm not going to answer that call. I am focused on this for 25 minutes. So I find that to be super healthy. And then obviously like avoiding numbing behaviors. Some people overdrink. Some people overeat. Some people stay on doom scroll on Facebook for 3 hours at a time, right? And there are so many different tools that one can do to help to find this success. And then I think that one one of the sections of all of our lives that I think helps us stay even keel is to consider calm and graceful. Calm has to do with order and a lack of chaos. So tips for being calm and graceful would involve staying on a regular schedule. It's well known that people who have messy houses, their cortisol levels are higher. Cortisol is a stress hormone. So it's not just about being neat and tidy for the sake of being neat and tidy. You're literally giving your brain a better chance. And if we can be the best we can be, then that is what we need to do. Meditation. Some people are going to pray, some people are going to meditate. But we need that in our lives. We need that to become the healthy and happy people that we are. And then also giving yourself grace, giving other people grace. No one is perfect. No one is perfect. The one thing that I would like for you to consider, when you do something really stupid, and you talk to yourself, and you curse at yourself, and you say, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. You were so stupid. I know everyone in this room has done it. We're human. We are all human. Would you speak to anyone else like that? Never. You would never speak to your wife or your partner or your husband or your colleague or your friend. You would never tell them that you're a blankety-blank idiot. Why would you speak to that yourself? And the reason that this all works, all of these things that I am telling you, all of these things work because I'm writing them down literally every night. So abundant and prosperous, what are some things? Abundant means that there is enough. And so when we're in a situation where we are not feeling like we're enough, it's because we're in that place of scarcity. So abundance is the key to it. And abundance is just having enough. It's not having too much. It's just having enough, being satisfied with what you have. It's not, when I say out loud, I was upset because I was on foodnetwork.com, not Food Network. I mean, I'm sure some of you, there are plenty of people that would want to slap my face for that. You selfish brat, right? But that's not it. It has to do with, it has to do with the mindset. So, one of the things that I learned from Natalie that was really incredible early on and has stood me well even throughout my career and life, it's called the pork chop theory. Don't you love that? I mean, anything that involves a pork chop can't be bad. So the pork chop theory is that if you put a pork chop in the pan and you turn the heat on high, the pork chop will burn. But if you put the pork chop in a pan with another pork chop, they will feed off the fat from one another, right? And so whenever you feel that sort of twinge of jealousy, well, I don't know why they got the promotion. I've been working hard too. I didn't get that promotion, right? Or when you feel like, well, I don't know why that happened for them. We can't control what happens for them. All we can do is control what happens to us. So I try to keep the pork chop theory really, really top of mind. And everything that I have spoken here tonight really, truly has to do with writing it down. So these are coming out soon. That is literally a hotel room of mine not too long ago. And I'm not making this up. Every night, every single night. Someone at one point told me that I needed to start journaling, and I was like, I don't want to start journaling. I already write, right? And then at some point, I was like, all right, I'm going to give it a shot. Let's just see. Let's see what happens. Science proves this. Write 3 things down that you're happy with. Write 3 things down that you're grateful for at the end of the night. So I started doing that. It wasn't working enough. So I decided that I needed to double my dosage. I did. Meditation is my medication. That is for sure. So I decided to double my dosage, and I started writing it down in the morning. 3 things that I was happy for, and I'm writing down at least 3 things that I was happy for at the end. Now this came to me through pop culture. This came to me from my 22-year-old godchild. Hey Virginia, look what I found. This is cool. Why don't you try this? And she was the one that opened that door for me to start effectively journaling, writing, data collection, whatever you want to call it. I have since learned not very long ago that this is actually based on the happiness professor, Sean from Harvard, that all of this works, our brains react to it. But at the end of every night, I would love for you to consider doing it too. I write down, I look at my day. Healthy and strong. Did I eat right today? Yes. I'm not going to get to check yes today because I had 2 biscuits and about a half a cup of chocolate gravy. So I'm going to put an X, right? Strong. I actually haven't exercised yet today. So I'll probably put a line because I'm going to have plenty of steps in. Clear and focused. Did I do any silly numbing behavior today? No. Focused. Did I practice time management? Yes. Calm. Was a schedule followed? Focused. Sorry. Calm. Was my schedule followed? Graceful. Did I meditate? Did I pray? One of the things that I encourage you to consider with graceful is not being polite, but was I nice to somebody? I don't mean being polite. I mean actually being nice to someone. At the end of your day, can you reflect on your day and say, I was nice to that cashier, or I was nice to that person, or I was nice to that colleague? Did you do them a kindness? And then the last one is abundant and prosperous. And for me personally, abundant, how I personally look at this, is did I do the work that I needed to do? Did I meet my deadlines? Did I successfully answer the client's questions? Did I do what I wanted to do? And then in terms of prosperity, the way that I look at that is, did I work to get new business? What did I do for my future? What did Virginia do that's going to help Virginia 6 months from now? Because you can't just expect it's going to happen, especially if you're a freelance food writer, right? So I feel like so much of the key to happiness, certainly the key to my life transformation, has had everything to do with not only writing to begin with, but also writing, measuring, and assessing my life. And I feel super compelled because I love Dolly Parton, and this is my favorite quote. Figure out how you are and do it on purpose. But there's actually a song that truly represents what I think the most, and it's about dreams. Because I've always been a dreamer, and dreams are special. I won't sing. I won't be Dolly and sing. I've always been a dreamer, and dreams are special things. But dreams are of no value if they're not equipped with wings. So secure yourself for climbing. Get ready for the flight. Don't let your chance go by. You have to try, right? And so that is, I think, what is at the root of examining our lives periodically. And how does that happen? How do we examine our lives? We examine our lives by writing it down. And then I'm thrilled to pieces to say that we have republished Lighten Up Y'all. They have copies of it here tonight. It's not about weight loss. It was about health gain, and that is mind, body, and spirit. That is not just a number between your toes. It is about feeling good in the body that you're in, feeling good about your brain, and feeling good about your health and your spirit. I now have a column for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution called Good and Good For You. They asked me, how about that? How's that for abundance and not scarcity? My editor noticed that she was following me on social media. She realized that my food was that way now, and she typed me a little note and said, why don't we start calling your column Good and Good For You? And after I picked myself up off the floor, because what an incredible branding opportunity, I said, yes, I'd love to talk to it. And after the lawyers got done with everything, we were able to sign a contract. So I feel completely that this life transformation, as a result of me journaling and writing it down, has made the hugest difference in my life. And I want to thank y'all so much for having me today. And it is entirely true that writing can transform you, and it can encourage positive behavior and optimal performance, and that it helps us, writing helps us become the people that we want to be. And I want to thank y'all so much for having me tonight. Thank you, Katie and Nancy, for asking me to speak this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions if y'all have any questions. And if you don't, I always say I'll ask you questions if you don't ask me questions.
I didn't tell them about your book while I see you all with UGA.
Oh, sorry. So this is Mama. She's my Chief Marketing Officer. So yes, I'm very excited. So Bon Appetit Y'all received the award, the first cookbook ever to be nominated for books all Georgians should read. And crazy enough, 2 Christmases ago, I was doing a book signing and I gave the store some information. And I said, you can order these books. It's an older book, but people love it. It's become a classic. I mean, but why don't you order some of those too? And she emailed me later, she goes, they say they don't have any. It's like, huh. So January came about. I literally just received a royalty check. Didn't understand it. Well, it was Random House. And even though it was selling, it wasn't selling enough. So they put it out of print. And I was like, oh, what else is going to go wrong now? Right? What else is going to go wrong? Anyway, you make lemons, you can make something sour, you make something sweet. So when life gives me lemons, I try to make lemonade. And I decided that I wanted to go to UGA Press. I did not take it to any other publishing company. I did not shop it around. I did not contact an agent. I Googled, who is the head of UGA Press? I found her name. I emailed her and I wrote, this book, Georgians should read. It's out of print. We can access it. I want y'all to have it. And we all know that university presses do not pay money. They certainly don't pay money like Random House. But we had some nice conversations about it because if they did not want it, then I was just going to put it on the shelf. But guess what's happened instead? We have a revised and updated edition coming out this fall. We have 12 new recipes in it, and I got to do the photography for it, which is really exciting. And I'm just absolutely thrilled to pieces, but it will be out, yes ma'am, it will be out this fall in paperback. So, anybody else? Well, there's plenty to eat, and if anyone would like a book, I'm happy to sign it. Katie, do you have anything else that you want me to do? Y'all have any, are y'all good?
Any questions?
Any questions?
Well, are you happy to be back in the South?
Oh my God, yes.
I mean, when you said Massachusetts, I was like, maybe that's the transformation she needed.
Well, it was certainly one of them. It was certainly one of them. One of my favorite stories about living up in Massachusetts.
I'm from there.
What part? Oh yeah. Okay, so I was in Western Mass in Hatfield, which is just near Northampton.
I moved from Massachusetts to here.
Yeah. No, it's a huge culture shock. I loved it there. New England was as exotic to me as Tahiti, right? I mean, seriously. And it would snow. It snows like a foot in like a couple hours, and I would stand at the window like a 3-year-old.
When's it gonna click in?
One of my favorite stories, we were at the fishmonger, literally a fishmonger, like a store that sells nothing but fish, which of course that doesn't happen much in the South. At the fishmonger, and we're having, he and my ex-partner and I were all having a conversation, and you know how you have a conversation with yourself while you're in a conversation, or at least I do, and I can remember thinking, he just does not like me. Why does he not like me? He does not like me. Is it because I'm Southern? Not kidding. Is it because I'm Southern? Is he homophobic? Does he remember the other person? You know, like I'm literally like churning in my head about why this man is so rude and why he's so not nice to me and why does he not like me. When we walk out the door and Lisa, my partner, goes, I cannot believe how nice he is to you. I've never seen him be different, so it's a different attitude. It's just a different mentality. And one is not better than the other. But I did a lot when I would, I did get a lot of, you're not from around here, are you? Yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, so you know, I know, I went to see Dolly Parton one time at Tanglewood. So I did get a lot of you're not from around here, are you? And that sort of flat. You know, I always, sometimes I want to be, no, I'm not, you mean old Yankee. But I never did. But I was sort of like a little, I don't know. People loved my accent there, I will say that. Anybody else? Jay? Yeah, it's easy. But what it did, the thing is like living in Massachusetts, I mean, part of it, like I live in Atlanta now, and I really want to move outside of Atlanta, because I lived in the country in Massachusetts, and now I live in the city again. And I really love living in the country. And I mean, what's not to love about being around life and love of nature? This is God's
Just so you
country.
know.
Yeah, this is definitely. I saw the sunset from this hilltop last night.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That 21% needs to take a look at that sunset, don't they, right? So anyway, well, thank y'all so much, and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so
Okay.